Hello everyone, I am Andrea, aka Mrs. C, and today I'm going to teach you all how to make paper sculptures of Pete the cat in his mummy costume in honor of Halloween. Now, how many of you know what sculpture is? Sculpture is an art form that uses a lot of different mediums. But first, sculpture is a work of art that is three-dimensional. Now, the reason it's three-dimensional is because it has height, it has width, and it has depth in physical form. That means you can actually walk around a sculpture, you can look high up at it, go under it, and maybe even hold it. Unless you're in a museum, then please don't touch the sculptures. Now, sculptures can be made from almost anything. They can be made from marble, wood, clay, or they could be made from mixed media, or almost anything else, or they could be glass or ice sculptures. Think about some sculptures that you may have encountered in your daily life, or just throughout the week. Maybe you see sculptures in your family's garden. Maybe you see sculptures outside of a church, or you see sculptures outside of people's houses, or maybe they're outside of your school. Think about that the next time you see a sculpture or work of art that is three-dimensional. Now, for this art project, we are going to be doing paper sculptures in honor of Halloween. Now, for this one, we're going to be looking at Pete the cat. I'm not sure how many of you love Pete the cat's books, but I rather enjoy his story read aloud videos. My favorite one is Pete the Cat's I Love My White Shoes. I just love the tune that comes with the read aloud video, which I will link below because it just shows how great it can be if whenever something happens or your shoes get stained, you just keep singing your song and just enjoying life. Now, the other story that I'm going to be sharing with my students who will be doing this project is Pete the Cat's Happy Halloween. As you can see on the cover, Pete the cat is dressed up as a mummy for Halloween. So our paper sculptures of Pete the cat are going to be wrapped up in all these thin white strips of paper to make him look like he's mummified. Now, brace yourself. We're going to need a lot of art supplies for this. To begin with, you're going to need blue paper that is 9 by 12 inches. You'll need blue paper that is cut to be 4.5 by 6 inches. And you will need blue paper that is cut into strips that are 9 by 1 inches. You will also need black paper that is 9 by 12 inches, yellow paper that is 3 by 2 inches, and little square cut pieces of pink paper that are 1 inch by 1 inch. You will also need white strips of paper that are about 1 inch by 6 inches, give or take. You will need printouts for the sneakers for Pete the cat. You'll need a printout for the trick-or-treat bag. You will need scissors, glue sticks, pencils, erasers, and Sharpies. Now let's gather these supplies, find a nice comfortable place to work, and let's get started. First, you are going to take your paper that is 12 inches by 9 inches, and you are going to fold it in half hamburger style. Or like a book, if you're not sure what it means to fold in half hamburger style. Let's make sure that the corners go behind each other as perfectly as possible. Now, if you have students that you're doing this with that might have some trouble drawing those perfect rainbow lines that will make the divide between the legs, you're going to want to take a white pastel and draw those dots to help those kids be able to cut the lines that they need. Otherwise, they can draw this with pencils if these students are very experienced with drawing rainbow lines. Remember, you want your feet to be about 1 inch wide to fit the sneakers that we're going to make for them. And then you're going to take your scissors and cut out that space. You can recycle that, or you could do something else with that blue paper. Now I'm taking my 4.5 by 6 inch paper and I'm going to fold it in half again, hamburger style or book style. There we are. This piece of paper is going to make Pete the cat's face. What we want to do is make sure that both sides of the face are the same. So teachers, if you have to do this for your students, draw a straight line to make the top of the head, draw an upside down V to make the pointed ear, then draw a slightly curved line to make the side of Pete the cat's head, and then you can draw either a curved line or a slanted line, kind of like half of a V, to make his chin. Next, take your scissors and, keeping the paper folded, you are going to cut. Now make sure that you're cutting on both sides of both your folded pieces of paper, so that way you get 4 legs for Pete the cat, and also you make both sides of his face. Before we think about putting Pete's head on his body, we need to give him features like eyes. You're going to take your yellow paper, which should be 3 inches by 2 inches. Cutting boards are really handy with making sure that you have paper cut the size you need. And you're going to fold it in half like a book or like a hamburger. Now draw a football shape. Once again, teachers, you can do this in advance to help your students get a head start. It's like 2 parentheses that are stuck together. And once again, keeping your paper folded, you are going to cut out your football shape. Kids, remember, the bigger your football shape is, the bigger Pete's eyes are going to look. So if you really want him to have big eyes, draw a football shape that really takes up that half of the paper after you folded it. All right, so next I'm going to take my glue stick, put glue on the back of both eyes, and make sure that I put them on either side of the face. After I am done gluing down both eyes, I'm going to use my Sharpie to add the pupils, or some bold circles in the middle of the eyes. You could always use your glue stick to help trace that perfect circle. If you have trouble drawing perfect circles, I still sometimes do trace my stuff, but for this, drawing a circle or an oval should be just fine. I did not do this for my Pete the cat, but later on you can add lashes or eyebrows, but right now we do not want to add anything around Pete the cat's eyes because we need to wrap up his face like a mummy. Take those strips of paper that you either cut out for yourself or your teacher did, and you're going to take your glue stick and start putting glue all across the back of it. Flip it over and use it to cover the space right beneath Pete's eyes. Make sure you fold it and stick it on the back, gently pinching it. Now, once again, to my students, no hammering or pounding your fist to get things to stick. Just gently rub the sides of your fists or your fingers to get your paper pieces to stick. Now I'm going to use another strip of paper to help mummify Pete for his costume, and I'm going to glue it right above his eyes. And make sure that you press it on the back. If it bothers you later on that you can kind of see the back of his head, you can always glue down some more pieces that cover the back of his head. Now I'm going to make another piece, but this one I want to fold in half and then cut down the middle. So this way I can use some smaller pieces to cover some smaller areas, like maybe the bottom of the legs or the tops of the ears. What I'm going to ask you all to do, make sure you cover the space that's above and below his eyes. And then after that, see how many different places you can wrap up Pete the cat. We want him to look like a mummy because that is his costume in the storybook that I'm hoping to introduce you all to. Now, I took this little half piece, I put some glue just on the end, and I pressed it behind his head because I want to give that impression that there's a little strip that's billowing in the wind, hanging loose, so if someone were to just grab that, they could unwrap Pete the cat. Now that I'm done covering the face, I'm going to take his head. I'm going to put a thick circle of glue right where I want to attach his head, and then gently press and rub it on. Now it's time to get the pink piece of paper, which should be 1 inch by 1 inch. The reason we need this pink paper is because it's going to make his nose. Teachers, if you want to give your students some different options for the color of the nose, that's absolutely fine. I just used pink. But you need to draw a letter V that touches the top of the paper. Then you're going to take your scissors and you are going to cut out the nose for Pete the cat, because now that we've wrapped up his face, we can start to add features, because there doesn't really seem to be a point to giving him a nose if we're just going to cover it up. I want to be able to see Pete's nose. Gently press it on without making a bunch of noise, like if you hammered your fist on. Now we need to be able to make our paper sculptures stand up. So what you're going to do is take the very bottom of each leg and fold it up towards the back to make a foot. Please go around and do this with all 4 legs. We need to flip to the back now, fold up the end of the leg to make a foot that is pointing up, because what we're going to do is take our glue sticks and put glue on the bottom of each foot. This way, when we press them down on the black paper, Pete's going to stand up. Oh, another thing you're going to want to do is write your name using your Sharpie so we know whose cat is whose. Excuse my mistake, but I decided that before I glued down Pete the Cat on the black paper, I wanted to get more of these white paper strips and use them to mummify Pete. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to make them all look straight. Some of these are going to be diagonal, not horizontal or vertical. And then I'm going to glue them underneath his body, right under where we're not really going to see them. If you see the end of some of the pieces, that's absolutely fine. You could always cover them with some more strips of paper, whether they're the same length or they are cut in half to cover some narrower areas like the bottom of his feet, legs, or the top of his ear. What I want you to do is just keep putting glue across the back of each strip of paper. Try crisscrossing some of these pieces so you can really make it look like he's wrapped in random directions. But you really want to make sure that you smooth down all the pieces so none of them get loose. Just as I showed you earlier, I'm going to take one of the strips of paper, fold it in half, then I'm going to cut it where I folded it so I can save some of the paper as I cover the legs. Now we are going to make his tail by grabbing the long blue strip of paper that is about 9 inches by 1 inch. We want to make it curly because Pete, he has a curly tail. One way that we can do this first is by making the end of the tail curve by snipping the corners just off the one end. Then you're going to take the curved end and you can wrap it around either a glue stick or a pencil or a crayon if you have that available. It has a slight curl here, but I decided I wanted to have a tighter curl for the tail. So I took a pencil and I carefully and slowly rolled the paper around the pencil. And then once I released it, I just fluffed it up a little bit, and take a look at that nice curl that Pete's tail is going to have. Awesome. Then you're going to open your glue stick and you are going to put glue on the very end of the tail. That's where the tail's going to attach to his body. And then you are going to take that end with the glue and you're going to press it and pinch it underneath. Remember, you can't just lightly set it there. You have to press it to make sure that the glue sticks to the paper. All right, once we do that, we should be able to stand up Pete the Cat. I rewrote my name because I accidentally covered it with the mummy strips, but what I'm going to do is add some whiskers because it's going to be a lot harder to add these features once we stand up Pete the Cat. And you can also outline his eyes or add eyebrows or lashes if you want. Maybe it's Pete the Cat's sister or his female cousin. It's absolutely your call. Now we can add the glue to the bottom of the feet and then press down the feet on the black paper to get him to stand up. If his feet ever come loose, whether it's now or the next class that you are working on this, don't worry, just add some more glue than you did the last time to help him stay put. After I got him to stand, I decided to cut and glue some more mummy strips. It's okay if once you get him standing, you decide that you want to add some more strips to cover him up a little more. That's absolutely fine, but please only glue a piece that you are about to press on. Next, you're going to color in the shoes. There should be 4 shoes for each student. Make sure that you fill in the cheese holes. You can leave some white areas if you want, but none of it should look scribbled. If you're going to leave an area white, it has to look like you meant to leave it that way. I will make sure to include a link for this page so any teachers that want to do this project with their students can use this handout. And then you're going to cut out each foot carefully. Make sure you don't include any of the negative space. And you are going to glue each shoe at the very bottom of the leg. Now keep in mind, I didn't put glue all across the back of each shoe. I just put a circle of glue behind where the heel is because that's where it's going to be attached to the leg. Let's not be wasteful of glue. Only use the amount of glue that you need. And I made all of the shoes pointing forward in the direction that Pete's going to be walking. I decided to outline his features later on. You just have to carefully lay down Pete the cat and then start outlining his eyes and his nose if you want his features to pop out a little more. I also want to make the inside of his eyes or pupils a little bit more white, so I used a white oil pastel. Next, you're going to want the trick or treat handout. I'll link that below. Next, we're going to work on his trick-or-treat bag. I know that I cut out my bag first, but I actually recommend that you color in your trick-or-treat bag before you cut it out. Make sure that you fill in the cheese holes carefully. I used some thin markers for this. Oh, and I drew an equal sign with a circle to make a lollipop. And then I drew some half circles sticking out. One had a little V sticking out of it with a wavy line across the top to make it look like there was a candy with a wrapper. After I finished coloring it in, I folded down the bottom of the trick-or-treat bag because, like with Pete, I wanted to make this trick-or-treat bag stand up on its own. Once again, make sure you rub down the bottom of the trick-or-treat bag and it will stick to the paper.